And so we're going to try to encapsulate all that's been going on this past week, and there has been a lot of things going on between President Trump, all of the rogue judges that are working to block everything he's attempting to do, and also with the Department of Government Efficiency that's been doing one heck of a job in trying to weed out all of the graft and corruption that's been going on. So the first thing that's going to happen is that Pam Bondi is doing a really good job taking on all of these rogue judges, and this has to come to an end. They do not have executive authority. They do not run the country. The president was elected to do exactly what he was doing, and he has a mandate to do it. So the first thing that's going to have to happen is that these judges are going to have to stand before Congress with inquiries into their impeachment, or the Supreme Court is going to have to start doing its job and blocking this interference that is nothing more than politics, petty politics. So, what's going to come from all of this in terms of the deportation is this is all going to come down to the Supreme Court of the United States. They're going to have to stand before the American people and say all of this illegal immigration that's been going on in the Biden administration years between Biden and Mayorkas is either illegal or it's not. And these criminals that are here, these drug dealers that are here, these gangs that are here, it's all going to be on the Supreme Court now, whether they go or stay. And President Trump has made it clear that public safety is the key issue in all of this. I mean, it doesn't take anybody much to understand that the last 4 years in the New York City subway system has been hell on earth. And that Alvin Bragg has decided he doesn't want to charge anybody with even attempted murder. He doesn't want to give them bail. They come back out, and the recidivism rate is just off the charts. And so Trump is doing exactly the right thing, and it's going to take a long time to deport 15 million people who don't belong here. But it's going to have to be done, or the Supreme Court of the United States is going to have to take responsibility for all of this. The second thing that's going to happen is that this interference of Doge doing its job, they're going to have to be allowed to do it. This corruption and money laundering has got to stop. They have uncovered billions and billions of dollars of money with no paper trail being dispersed by USAID to God only knows where it's all gone. And we know that a bunch of this money has been funneled back to the United States to individuals responsible for creating USAID in the first place. So Elon Musk is taking a terrible hit for doing the responsible thing and helping uncover all of this graft and corruption, it's at epidemic levels. There's just no doubt about it. The final thing that I want to talk about is the dismantling of the Department of Education. And this is the beginning of the line of blame being cut. No longer are parents and students going to be able to blame somebody else for their students not performing on a grade level wherever they are, whether they're in elementary school, middle school, or high school. That they can no longer look to Washington and place the blame on the Federal Department of Education being involved in creating standards that are either wrong or not attainable, because we know that they are. So now this is all going to be slowly pushed back to the states. The states already have 90% of control over education, but now the states and the parents are no longer going to be able to look to Washington, D.C. as part of the problem. This is all going to be dropped in their lap, and now the parents will have to take on the school boards where they are, and they're going to have to decide what kind of an educational system do they want their students to be a part of. Students are no longer going to be able to blame somebody else for their lack of effort in the classroom. We just saw this week that there was a teacher who was fired who gave students a 2-week assignment, and a number of her students decided to turn in absolutely nothing. And she was fired because she gave them zeros in the grade book, and the school administration had stated that no teacher can give a student less than a 50 for doing no work. How do you get something for doing nothing? And this has become clear that this is nothing more than educational welfare. You've got students who work their tails off to get hundreds on this assignment, 2 weeks to do the work, and they're going to get 100, and somebody that does absolutely nothing and turns in nothing gets half of what the students who worked hard got? Does that make sense to anyone? Hardly. So now the parents and the students are going to have to wear the student performance. There's going to be nobody else to blame for students not doing work. But the students really need to understand, what is the point of all of this education anyhow? This is to prepare them to be able to find gainful employment when they become adults. School does not mean there is a purpose to it. It is so that they can read, they can write, they can do math, they can understand basic science, that they're going to be able to prepare themselves to be able to conduct themselves properly in a work environment and be able to make a living for their family. There is no other purpose to education. It is not a babysitting service any longer. The students themselves are going to have to figure out that this is to help them become be successful in life and be able to learn a good living. So, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a long haul this next year. I figure that there's going to be a lot of contention within school board meetings. But it's going to have to take place, and parents are going to have to get very involved in what is taught in the curriculum. The state school boards do all of this anyhow. The state's Department of Education do majority of this. And now there is going to be plenty of funds to be able to trickle back to states, because all of the administrative costs that went on in Washington, D.C., most of those, 80% of that's all going to go away. And a lot of that money that has been going to fund that department can now be trickled back into states and give the states control over what they want to do within their school systems. Now, finally, I want to say this. There is no student on the planet that cares how much money their teacher makes. They don't care how much money the administrator makes. They don't care how much money the head of the school board makes. They don't care how much money the school superintendent makes. So the students are going to have to decide whether they want to take their education seriously and start getting themselves back on grade level. And unfortunately, this is going to have to start at grade school level right now with an enhanced push for student achievement. I can tell you that when I started teaching, and I taught for 11 years math in high school and middle school, that I was shocked my 3 years in high school that we had kids sitting in the classroom that could not add, subtract, multiply, and divide. They had no clue how to do basic algebra. And many of the students that I had in my classroom didn't even have a signature, a cursive signature, so they were unable to sign a legal document. So I spent my homeroom having them write and learn how to do a cursive signature so that they could actually sign their driver's license as a legal document. The lack of us teaching cursive is really a terrible mistake, just like not teaching phonics in school when we decided to get away from that was a terrible mistake. We also have to get students to be coming back to be able to read on grade level, to expand their vocabulary, and learn how to write complete sentences, complete paragraphs, and be able to generate a complete thought and draw an opinion based on what they know to be true. So there's a lot that's gone on this week, and there's going to be a lot more that's going to come into play. But I can tell you that getting rid of the Department of Education is the biggest step that this government has ever taken to be able to fix education. And you can forget about teachers' unions, because I can tell you that as a teacher in Georgia, we made half, because we're not unionized, we made half the money the teachers up north in public school unions make. And test scores up there for the bottom 50% of the kids are just as bad as the bottom 50% of the kids here in Georgia. It has nothing to do with money, but it has everything to do with student effort. And even if the kids that are in AP classes, advanced placement, have a higher IQ than you, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't achieve just as much by putting in more effort. It's going to take equal effort or more effort for this all to change. And the question is, do we have the gumption and the will and the desire to make it all happen? And this is now going to be back on all of the parents and all of the students to take on this task.